The Life of Noelle Silva, Black Clover. Noelle Silva is a noblewoman and the second daughter of the Clover Kingdom's House Silva, one of its royal families. She is also a third-class junior magic knight of the Black Bull and Royal Knight squads. Undine, the Spirit of Water, chooses to serve Noelle after her contract with Princess Lolopechka is temporarily weakened. Welcome to the Amagi. In today's video, we're going over the life of Noelle Silva. Before we begin, we publish a new video basically every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. The Amagi's reach stretches beyond just this channel, so if you're a fan of us, please consider subscribing to our other channels and following us on all our social media. Help us reach our goal of passing 100,000 followers on all of our accounts by the end of the year. And with that out of the way, let's get into the video. Noelle was born as the second daughter of House Silva, the royal family of the Clover Kingdom. After giving birth, Noelle's mother Aesir rests in a secluded residence. When Vanica Zogratis attacks the house in search of Aesir, Noelle takes the infant Noelle and hides in the bushes while their mother fights Vanica. However, Noelle's crying leads Vanica to them. Vanica threatens to kill the children, but Aesir stabs the devil host. Vanica is lethally wounded and retreats, while Magicula curses. After Aesir dies, Noelle keeps the secret of their mother's curse to protect his younger siblings from being cursed as well. Noelle has a rough childhood, as she's ridiculed and called a defect by her own family because of her lack of control over her magical powers, and is blamed for the death of her mother. Noelle spends her childhood days with her cousin Mimosa Vermilion, where they would explore and play within an abandoned ruin of buildings. After finding out about her difficulty to control her own magical power, Noelle also spends a fair amount of time in the ruin to train on her own. When Noelle turns 15 years old, she's inducted into the Black Bull squad over Captain Yamisuke Hiro's good grace after Noelle rejected her entry to his ranks in the Silver Eagle squad. Sometime after the Magic Knight's entrance exam, she observes from the Black Bull's headquarters when her fellow squadmates are giving an initiation ceremony to another new member, some guy named Asta. She later meets with him while Magnus Swing is taking him on a tour of the headquarters. Noelle rejects Asta's kind offer of friendship and decides to explain their differences in status with her magic. However, her attack misses and hits Magna instead. After failing to convince Magna that it's his own fault, Noelle storms out while discarding her squad robe. Later at dawn, Noelle trains by herself to fix her lack of control while remembering the painful memories she received from her family. Once she declares that she'll prove her worth, her power turns berserk, and a giant sphere of water appears as it traps Noelle at the center. Fortunately, Asta manages to save her by cutting the sphere with his sword after the Black Bull captain throws him at it. As Noelle and Asta fall, Finral Rulacase manages to get them to land safely on the ground with his magic. Noelle is then encouraged by her squadmates even though she expected them to mock her. Later on, Noelle and Asta receive their first mission as a magic knight. She declines the mission at first, but quickly changes her mind after being threatened by Yami. Noelle, along with Asta and Magna, travel to the village of Soshi via Magna's broom, because she's unable to ride a broom on her own, and Finral can't open a gate to a place which is neither in his line of sight, nor which he has not visited beforehand. Once they arrive, however, a fight occurs between them and a group of mages led by Heath Grice. During the fight, Noelle tries to attack Heath, but fails because of her lack of control over her magical power. Heath's comment on her disability begins to discourage her, which is strengthened by Magna's request for her to retreat. However, when one of the young girls of the village begs her for protection, Noelle regains her confidence, which causes her grimoire to reveal a new spell, Sea Dragon's Nest. She then quickly casts the protection spell, which manages to protect all of them from Heath and his group's combined assaults. Noelle maintains her spell while Magna and Asta deliver their counterattack and casts a smaller scale of the said spell on Magna at the end of their assault. Her sudden progression makes her very happy, but she decides to keep it for herself. As the fight ends, Noelle acknowledges Asta's qualities as she sees that the latter faints because of exhaustion. She later becomes enamored with the anti-bird that follows Asta all the time. Afterwards, Noelle witnesses Heath commit suicide while bringing two of his subordinates along with him. She then follows Asta around while focusing her attention on the anti-bird and proposes to take care of said bird before they encounter Nick, the grandson of the man who requested the mission. She watches as Asta gives Nick a few words of encouragement. Having returned to headquarters, Noelle, along with Magna and Asta, reports back to Yami and receives her first salary. She then goes on a shopping trip to Kika with Asta and Vanessa in Oteka, during which Vanessa takes her to the black market to find items that could help her control her magical power. A man named Seke Bronzaza tries to flirt with her and Vanessa while they look at an item, but she coldly rejects him. Her opinions of Seke do not change, even when she learns that he's Asta's acquaintance. It decreases even further when he tries to impress her by trying to catch a thief whom snatched an old lady's bag. Noelle leaves with her squadmates after Asta and Seke manage to apprehend the thief and return the old lady's belongings. Days later, Noelle is assigned on a mission to explore a newly emerged dungeon along with Asta and Luck Voltia. As they enter the dungeon, Noelle has a heated argument with Asta in regards to the anti-bird's name. However, it's soon put to rest after Luck suggested Nero for the name. A moment later, they begin to walk through the dungeon in complete darkness after Noelle bumps Asta from the back, which leads him to drop their only source of light. Fortunately, Luck confirms that they've reached the inner side of the dungeon where Noelle can feel the dense amount of mana in the atmosphere. Noelle and Asta are quickly in a pinch when Luck begins to activate almost all of the trap magic set within the dungeon after Asta accidentally activated one of them. Additionally, Noelle and Asta are left befuddled after Luck decided to leave them for an unknown agenda. Suddenly, another trap is activated and manages to strangle Noelle before Asta comes to her rescue. As the trap begins to restrain Asta, Noelle witnesses a powerful magic spell easily destroying it, which leaves her amazed towards the user, who's able to cast such a powerful spell. Noelle then learns the identity of the spellcaster is Yuno, an acquaintance of Asta and a member of the Golden Dawn Squad. She's then caught in a series of arguments between Asta and Klaus Lunetz after her cousin Mimosa Vermilion strikes up a conversation with her. Noelle is also left speechless when Klaus asks about the whereabouts of Luck. Subsequently, after the Golden Dawn members leave to conquer the dungeon, Noelle questions the method, which Asta proposes to find the center of the dungeon until Nero points them to a tunnel. They decide to follow Nero's guidance, but find themselves in an area with unstable gravitational force. While she tries to control her body, Noelle is also unable to prevent Asta from capturing a walking treasure chest and is left nauseated after seeing the living organs inside of it. They continue their search for the center of the dungeon when Asta suddenly stops after he hears a peculiar noise. Noelle assumes that the noise comes from Luck's fight. When Asta suggests giving Luck some help, Noelle argues by saying that Luck left to fight in the first place and their main priority is to reach the center of the dungeon. In the end, Noelle and Asta decide to help Luck and forsake their mission as they arrived at Luck's side. The moment Luck agrees to defeat the opponent together, the latter immediately traps them within a shroud of thick smoke. Noelle tries to break the smoke veil by attacking it with magic, but to no avail. She begins to worry about the possibility of being suffocated if they don't quickly defeat their opponent. Noelle then participates on Luck's plan to defeat their opponent, with her in charge of launching Asta towards Lotus, while Luck guides them towards their direction. She remarks that she has to suppress her magic as much as possible to avoid being detected. As soon as their opponent is in position, Noelle sends Asta flying with her spell and they manage to land significant damage on their opponent. Regretfully, their opponent managed to escape at the last moment, as Asta ceases his pursuit. Noelle and her squad mates then decide to return to their original objective of heading over to the center of the dungeon. Upon their arrival, Noelle witnesses as Asta and Yuno are about to fight another opponent together. She also encounters Mimosa, who lies within her spell as she tries to recuperate. Seeing her unguarded cousin, Noelle immediately casts a defensive spell around her and promises to keep her safe. Noelle then begins fighting puppets made by Mars, the Diamond Kingdom's mage, when she starts hearing Klaus's comments on Asta's strength. She tries to explain her squad mate's power, but decides to let Klaus judge Asta's worth by his own eyes. After Mars is defeated and restrained, the 6 magic knights of the Clover Kingdom enter the center of the dungeon, with Asta forcefully cutting down the door for them. Upon seeing the treasures being stored behind the door, it quickly amazes them as they spread out and explore the treasury. Unbeknownst to them, Mars manages to regain his consciousness and storms into the treasury. When Noelle notices that Mars has activated a fire-based healing magic spell, she immediately tries to extinguish it with her magic. Unfortunately, Mars's reaction is faster than her and manages to land critical damage onto her. Mars's attack renders Noelle unconscious, but she's able to wake up after Mimosa activates her strongest healing spell to keep Noelle alive. As she awakens, Noelle immediately orders Asta to finish the fight quickly, while also revealing that he's the only commoner she's ever acknowledged. Unfortunately, Asta fails to fulfill his promise as he falls to the ground while a blade pierces his stomach. After Yuno defeats Mars through unknown means, Noelle quickly asks Mimosa to heal Asta, but the dungeon suddenly starts collapsing. She and the rest escape the dungeon on top of Yuno's Heavenly Wind arc. After they manage to reach the exit, Noelle remains close to Asta as he regains consciousness. She's then taken by surprise when Klaus acknowledges her squad mate by hugging him in front of the others. A week after the mission completion, Noelle is tasked to go to the Magic Knight's headquarters to give a report in regards to the mission. While accompanied by Asta, the couple encounter Klaus, Yuno, and Mimosa on their way to the designated venue. She then notices that her cousin's acting suspiciously towards Asta, which prompts Noelle to ask her about it. When Noelle finds out that Mimosa has feelings for Asta, she begins to fluster as she tries to comprehend her own feelings about the situation. Moments later, the 5 of them arrive at the designated venue, where they're welcomed by the Magic Emperor, Julius Novachrono. After a dialogue with the Emperor, Noelle and the others are invited by the former to attend a War Merits Conferment ceremony that honors the achievements of several Magic Knights. As soon as the ceremony ends, Noelle attends the celebratory banquet in which she and her squad mates on the dungeon exploring mission are scrutinized by the honorary Magic Knights. Ultimately, her own siblings, who are also among the receivers of the medals, start humiliating her and force her to leave the venue. Suddenly, Asta takes her arm and prevents Noelle from leaving before expressing his feelings regarding the matters at hand. After someone notifies the knights that the royal capital is under attack, Noelle joins her colleagues in defending the city. She follows the captain of the Crimson Lion Squad, Fuegolian Vermilion, as he tries to catch up to his younger brother. Noelle arrives at the North District of the royal capital alongside the 2 brothers from House Vermilion. She then begins to show her hesitation when the other knights start decimating the army of corpses that invade the city. Her hesitation continues when she notices that Asta is struggling with an opponent. She becomes reluctant to save Asta after remembering her meeting with her older siblings prior to the invasion. Due to this, Noelle fails to react when several corpses are charging towards her. Luckily, Fuegoleon manages to save her just in time before reprimanding her for her lack of focus in the battlefield. After a few words of encouragement from the Crimson Lion captain, Noelle quickly assists Asta by protecting the little girl that the latter has been struggling to protect. Subsequently, Noelle is unable to assist Asta in fighting the number 2, Alfred, because she and Leopold are engaged in a different battle against number 3, David. After hearing Fuegoleon's words of encouragement, Noelle immediately prepares herself for the fight. The two nobles are finally able to defeat their opponent, and Noelle unintentionally gives a salute after Fuegoleon praises their efforts. Not long after, the Crimson Lion's captain is suddenly teleported away from their location. Noelle quickly tries to locate the perpetrator before Asta steps in and finds Valtos under a pile of corpses. The man then opens another portal, which sends back the lifeless body of Fuegoleon. Noelle is rendered surprised and speechless with the turn of events. She rushes to Fuegoleon's body and tries to stop his bleeding after she discovers that the captain's grimoire is still intact. However, it begins to crumble as she uses her own clothes to stop the bleeding. She's then occupied on protecting Fuegoleon's body while Asta and Leopold engage in a fight against Valtos and Radis. She can only watch as the enemy's reinforcements come and Asta stands his ground to fight them. Noelle tries to assist Asta and Leopold while they're fighting against the 5 mages, but their protective spell is easily neutralized by one of the mages. As she's occupied on protecting Fuegoleon's body, Noelle can only watch as the mages try to kill Asta and Leopold. Fortunately, the rest of the Magic Knights are able to return and intercept the attack. However, once again, Noelle is unable to prevent the opponents, who identified themselves as members of the Eye of the Midnight Sun, from taking Asta away as they escape. Noelle immediately proposes a rescue mission to her fellow knights, but none of them complies, and Noelle clearly states their priority is to establish the city's defenses before another attack. As she realizes that further effort to convince them is useless, Noelle quickly turns her attention to Fuegoleon and asks Mimosa to treat him. She remains close to Fuegoleon's body while a part of her thoughts are worried about Asta. As Fuegoleon and Leopold receive their treatment, Noelle waits outside of the medical ward along her colleagues when Julius returns with Asta. She then slightly criticizes Asta for being kidnapped while her thoughts express relief over his safety. Suddenly, Klaus pushes her aside as he expresses his relief towards Asta. Noelle is then rendered speechless when Mimosa hugs Asta out of sheer relief. She remains with her colleagues when Julius assesses the threat and gives the knights a few words of encouragement for their future conflicts. Later on, Noelle strolls around the royal capital with Asta and Charmy Papitson as they prepare to depart the city. While enjoying a piece of pastry, Noelle asks Charmy about her method of entry to the city. The noblewoman is left speechless when she witnesses Charmy's versatile magic. After they encounter the Golden Dawn members and said their farewells, Noelle returns to the Black Bull's headquarters. While she listens to her squadmates' conversation, Noelle is stunned when Finral invites Asta on a blind date. Due to this, like most rational humans, the noblewoman then decides to observe the blind date from afar. She follows the boys to Nairn and applies to work as a waitress at the restaurant where the date is being held. As Noelle observes Asta, she recognizes Seke, who's on a blind date as well. She quickly blasts him with her water magic when he asks for a drink. While her attention is shifted for a moment, Asta manages to have a lively conversation with Rebecca Scarlet, who quickly irritates Noelle. The restaurant's manager tries to warn the noblewoman of her misbehavior, but Noelle coldly shuts him up. When Asta and his date are forced to flee from the restaurant, Noelle quickly follows them after she tenders her resignation to the manager. She then finds them in an alley and decides to eavesdrop on them. The moment Asta confirms to his date that he has someone he likes, Noelle quickly jumps to the conclusion that she is the referred to person, which throws her into a state of panic. Due to this, Noelle decides to follow Asta and learns that another girl, Marie Adley, plans to take him as her husband. Subsequently, the noblewoman becomes furious when Asta accepts an offer to sleep at Rebecca's house. Later that night, Noelle returns to Nairn where she sees a group of children walking towards the mountain area. She quickly goes to Asta and questions the sudden change of weather and informs them of the children's behavior. Not long after, Gauche Adley, a senior from the Black Bull squad, finds a way to trace them. When Asta, Gauche, and Sister Teresa prepare to pursue the children, Noelle tries to come with them, but Gauche denies her request due to her inability to fly with a broom. As they leave, Noelle shockingly realizes that she's been left alone with Rebecca. After they leave, she contacts headquarters to tell them about the situation. While the Magic Knights captains are fighting the Third Eye, Rebecca makes some food for her siblings and Noelle, who delights in the taste but becomes worried that Asta would want someone who can cook. Rebecca expresses concern about Asta's well-being, and Noelle assures her that he's fine and he'll return like nothing happened, and with the children. She then requests more food. After Asta's return and visit to the royal capital, he and Noelle visit Rebecca and Marco Scarlet returns Asta's robe. To thank Asta for saving her siblings, Rebecca kisses Asta on the cheek, shocking Noelle, somehow, for some reason. She shouldn't be shocked by this at this point. The Black Bulls travel to Rock for their secret mission to the Seabed Temple. However, their squad gets distracted and plays on the beach. Noelle wonders if her new bikini will attract Asta because she's jealous that Rebecca kissed him, and when she calls out to him for his opinion on her suit, he ignores her in favor of training his legs in the sand. Angry, Noelle fires a water bullet at him but hits Magna instead. He asks if she still can't control her magic, and she brags that without her wand she can only use defensive magic. When Seke's two friends hit on Noelle, she turns them down. Yami appears and buries the squad up to their necks in sand. He then briefs them about the mission to infiltrate the water temple and the plan to access it during the full moon, when the mana currents are weakest. The squad is surprised to see that the captain did actual work, for which he threatens them. To get to the ocean floor, he plans to use Noelle's water magic. She disapproves because she can't control Sea Dragon's nest and worries that not only she, but also the rest of the squad could drown if she fails. Yami agrees, but since this mission is secret and was given only to him, there's no one else. He gives her a week when the next full moon appears to train. Later that night, after performing the spell several times, Noelle still struggles to maintain and control Sea Dragon's nest. She reflects on the tricks that Vanessa taught her, but they didn't work. However, she's not discouraged and resolves to keep trying. She then hears Asta yell because a crab pinched his toe while he was also training, though Asta could be yelling for literally any reason. He suggests they train together as he can stop her if she loses control again. She initially rejects the idea, but begins to acquiesce. Asta gets distracted by the sound of someone singing, and the two go off to investigate. Following the sound, they happen upon a girl standing on a rock. Noelle remarks on the beauty of the singing and wonders from where the girl is and whether or not she's a ghost. The girl, Kahano, notices the two and gets embarrassed, breaking the otherworldly feeling. Noelle wonders if the bubbles were Kahano's magic. When Kahano heals Asta, Noelle is impressed by her control. After Noelle accepts Kahano's friendship, Kahano instructs her on how to control her magic better and asks if she has any good memories with her family on which she can focus. Noelle can only recall sad ones, but stays silent about it, only mentioning a desire to continue training. They begin a cycle of training. Noelle forms Sea Dragon's nest while Kahano and Asta cheer for her, and periodically Kahano heals Noelle. On the last night, Asta finally convinces Noelle to release control of her magic power and let her mana run wild, as he would save her again if her spell goes awry. While using the spell, she becomes disheartened, as she has no happy memories. Just then, the other Black Bulls show up and cheer for her, reminding her of the good times with them. Encouraged and focused, she completes Sea Dragon's cradle, but in her moment of triumph, loses her concentration, showering her squad mates. As she falls, Asta catches her. While celebrating her success with her squad, she turns to thank Kahano, who's now disappeared. Noelle then brings everyone to the Seabed Temple using her spell. Once they reach the temple, they're guided to a meeting with the head priest, Gifso. After meeting with Gifso and learning that they'll have to play a game to obtain the magic stone, the Black Bulls, except Yami and the priest, are transported to another location. Noelle then listens as Gifso explains the rules and what it'll take to win this game. Later, Noelle encounters a priest and tries to bluff her way out of fighting, but the priest then reveals herself as Kahano. Noelle asks Kahano about the real reason they had met, and Kahano insists that they're friends, but Noelle denies it. Kahano then tries to put Noelle to sleep, which Noelle counters by putting up a barrier. Kahano tries to destroy the barrier with an offensive spell, which Noelle tries to counter but misses. As Kahano wonders what's wrong with Noelle, Noelle tells her that she still can't control her mana. Kahano tells Noelle that it's not true, and that Noelle is subconsciously suppressing her mana because she doesn't want to hurt anyone. Kahano also tries to motivate Noelle by telling her to do her best. Later, when Veto and members of the Eye of the Midnight Sun show up, Noelle listens as Yami explains what's happened, and he tells her to surpass their limits. Noelle also listens as Gifso explains how the rules have changed and what it'll take to win. Later, Noelle along with Kahano arrive at the location where Veto is, and after freeing Asta, inform Veto what Asta had said. Noelle notices that Magna and Luck were defeated and wonders how strong Veto is. Noelle then watches as Kahano and her brother Kiato take on Veto. Kaito and Kahano are defeated, and Veto holds Kahano up by her hair. Noelle tells Veto to let her go, but he dismisses her. After some encouraging words from Kahano, Noelle releases her mana and tells Veto to let Kahano go one more time. Veto tosses her aside and tells Noelle to fire everything she has, which Noelle fires Sea Dragon's Roar, which not only rips off Veto's arm, but blasts through the walls for everyone to see. As Noelle is glad at what she's done, she's then shocked when Veto reveals a third eye and releases a sinister mana. Yami tells Noelle to run, but Noelle is too scared to follow through. As Veto fires a blast at Noelle, she's saved by Asta, who cuts the spell. Noelle then thinks about how Veto looks like the demon she heard about from her childhood story. After Vanessa and Finral show up, Noelle protects the others while Asta takes on Veto with the help of Finral and Vanessa. As Noelle watches the battle, Noelle thinks about how amazing both Finral and Vanessa are. After Veto is defeated, Noelle starts to talk with the others but notices that Veto's mana is being released. As Noelle prepares to face Veto, Yami suddenly shows up and pats everyone on the head for doing a good job. After Yami kills Veto, Noelle goes to congratulate Yami but is forced to move away when Yami swings his sword around. After they manage to get the magic stone, Noelle meets with Kahano and Kyoto, who are resting from the battle. Noelle starts to apologize to them, but Kahano tells her that she'll get better and make her dream a reality. After hearing this, Noelle cheers up and leaves. A day later, Noelle leaves with the rest of the Black Bulls back to headquarters. Once back at HQ, Noelle is in the common room with everyone else, where she points out that Asta is the most heavily injured one out of everybody. Later, after Yami, Asta, Charmy, and Finral return from reporting to the Magic Emperor, Noelle attends the celebration for the Black Bulls, obtaining enough stars to get rid of their black stars. During the celebration, Noelle offers to feed Asta because of his broken arms, but attacks him when she finds out that Asta can eat using his feet. Later, after Asta leaves the celebration, Noelle notices that Asta is acting weird, and Finral reveals to everyone that Asta's arms can never be returned to normal. After listening to this, Noelle heads to spy on Asta along with everyone else. After hearing Asta say that this wasn't going to make him give up, Noelle starts to cheer up. The next day, Noelle sets out along with the rest of the Black Bulls minus Yami and Asta to find a cure for Asta's arms. After dropping off the others at their destination, Noelle talks with Finral about how the worst order of the Magic Knights is helping a kid who has no mana, but how that one kid gives them all hope. After talking, Finral suggests that they head somewhere else to find a cure, which Noelle declines and tells him to take her to another location. Noelle and Finral then head out to meet with Fanzel, Domina, and Mariella and inform them what had happened to Asta. Noelle then asks if they have some way to cure Asta, and Domina suggests that the Witch Queen of the Witch's Forest might be able to cure Asta's arms. Noelle listens as Domina explains what the Witch's Forest is, who the Witch Queen is, and how both she and Vanessa are fugitives within the forest. After finishing explaining everything, Domina asks if they still want to head there, which Noelle says that she does. Noelle, Finral, Fanzel, Domina, and Mariella then head towards the Black Bull headquarters through a portal to pick up Asta and head to the Witch's Forest. After reaching the forest, Noelle is grouped with Domina and Mariella while sneaking in. While sneaking through, they're spotted and rushed to where the Witch Queen lives. After they reach where the Witch Queen is and enter through a hole, Noelle notices that Vanessa is unconscious on the floor. After listening to the Witch Queen's explanation on her punishing Vanessa, Noelle finds out with the others that two armies are approaching the Witch's Forest. When Vanessa regains consciousness, Noelle listens as Asta and Vanessa start to argue with each other. After that, Noelle tells the Queen that they'll help defend the forest if she heals Asta's arms, and the Witch Queen agrees. Noelle watches along with the others as the Witch Queen heals Asta. After Asta's arms are healed and ready to fight, Noelle, alongside Vanessa and Finral, attack him over how worried they were, but notices that Asta is unscathed. Afterwards, Noelle heads to where the Eye of the Midnight Sun's army is, along with Asta, Vanessa, and Finral, where she uses her magic to put out the waters. After a while, Noelle goes to protect Asta, Vanessa, and Finral from an attack, while also telling them that she can't put out the fire since more just keep popping up. While Fauna breaks that barrier, Noelle quickly escapes with the others. As Noelle suddenly remembers her family insulting her, she suddenly hears both the voices of Bruce and Asta who encourage her. Noelle then fires her strongest spell and manages to weaken Salamander, who tried to block the spell only to be defeated. Noelle then watches as Asta manages to defeat Salamander with the help of Finral and Vanessa. After the Diamond Kingdom's army is defeated and Fanzel along with Mars show up, Noelle watches as Fauna decides to blow everything away by releasing her mana. Noelle then watches along with the others as Asta and Mars try to stop Fauna from blowing everything away. After Asta and Mars manage to stop Fauna, Noelle listens as Fauna explains everything that had happened to her and the reason that the Eye of the Midnight Sun are here. Noelle and the others are then wounded by Ladros, minus Asta and Fauna, when he launches an attack on them. Noelle then watches as Asta takes on Ladros. After Ladros gets the advantage over Asta, Noelle watches as anti-magic starts to cover his body. Noelle continues to watch as Asta easily cuts through Ladros' blast and defeats him. After Ladros is defeated and the Witch Queen arrives on the battlefield, Noelle, along with the others minus Asta, are taken hostage. After the Witch Queen uses a spell to take control of Asta, Noelle is amazed by how many powerful spells the Witch Queen is using one after the other. Noelle is chosen to be first killed, but is saved when Vanessa taps into her power to control fate. After the Witch Queen is defeated, Noelle and the others are freed and Noelle hugs Vanessa. Afterwards, Noelle heads back to the Witch Queen's palace, and the others listen as the Witch Queen explains about the magic stone, the elves, the demon, and Asta's swords. After listening to the Witch Queen, Noelle parts ways with Fanzel, Domina, Mariella, Fauna, Mars, and Ladros after saying their goodbyes. After Noelle returns to the Black Bull's headquarters with the others, Noelle is shocked to find out what had happened to the other group when they returned from their missions. When Yami and Finral reveal that the Star Awarding Festival is about to happen, Noelle joins them in the capital city to enjoy the festival. When Kiato and Kahano arrive, Noelle is glad to see Kahano and even happy for her when Asta uses a spell he got from the Witch Queen to heal them. Noelle is then shocked when Kahano suggests that she, along with Kiato and Asta, go on a double date. As Noelle wonders what Kahano is thinking, Noelle is too distracted watching Asta and Kahano to enjoy the festival properly. When they come across a crying child, Noelle tries to help her out, but she doesn't stop crying. After Asta, Kahano, and Kiato cheer the child up, Noelle is able to find out that the girl's name is Emma and what had happened. Noelle then tells Kahano to spread the word with her magic and is able to find the girl's mother. After they return the girl to her mother and the mother notices that Noelle is a member of the royal family, Noelle gives her a speech that she's there to help people of Clover Kingdom. When Asta suddenly comments about how he likes her, Noelle is surprised by this and blasts him away with a spell. Afterwards, Noelle and Kahano head out on a date with just the two of them. When the star ranking announcement starts, Noelle heads over to the stage with Kahano and Kiato. During the announcement, Noelle is shocked when the Black Bulls are in second place. When Julius asks for a member of the Black Bulls to come up on stage, Noelle wonders where Asta is and that he should be going up on stage. After the announcements are over, Noelle comments to Kahano and Kiato that the Black Bulls will place first next year. When the festival is over, Noelle chases down Asta so he can bid farewell to Kahano, but Marileona Vermilion grabs and carries her to Old Team Volcano Mountain Trail for training with Asta, Yuno, Yami, Charlotte, and the Crimson Lion Squad. As she makes her way along the path, Noelle struggles to maintain control of her mana, and Marileona notices how the girl has changed and challenges her to be like her mother, which motivates her. As they make their way up the volcano, Noelle, Leopold, and the other Crimson Lions are obstructed by a magic life form made of lava. When Noelle tells Leopold to take it out, he points out that she should, as her water magic should be more effective, but she explains that she's barely maintaining her mana skin. Suddenly, Asta, cloaked in anti-magic, slices through the lava monster, much to Noelle's shock. Noelle reaches the summit before nightfall, so she's allowed to soak in the hot springs. Sol starts washing Noelle's hair despite the girl's objections. Sol tells her about the Blue Rose Squad having its men act as servants, which Noelle thinks isn't a bad idea. When Charlotte passes out, Sol leaves Noelle alone, and Marileona points out that Noelle looks like her mother, Acer Silva. Noelle asks to hear more about her, so Marileona explains their past together and contrasts Noelle's ability with her mother's. However, Marileona declares that Noelle will surpass Aesir with her own abilities, which Noelle agrees. Suddenly, Noelle notices that the water has gotten warmer. A week later, Noelle attends the exam, where she spots her brother Solide, but remembering Marileona's comments, Noelle reveals herself. She's placed on Team P with Yuno and N. Ringard. And after traveling to the tournament battlefield, she finds out that her first opponent will be her brother's team. Noelle is concerned when Mimosa and Asta charge across the battlefield during the first match, and is shocked when Team A's spells are reflected back at them. As the second match starts, Noelle sums up Kirsch Vermilion as creepy, with which Klaus disagrees. Before the fifth match, Charmy floats out of Noelle's hood, having hidden herself and Nero in a cotton bundle. Noelle asks why she came, and Charmy explains that she wants to cheer for Yuno. As their first match begins, Noelle and Yuno disagree on who should lead, while N offers to support them. After Team O rapidly crosses the battlefield, Noelle defends her team from Dimitri Brint's combo eruption, but Alekdora's crushing sand cloud absorbs her water magic. Team P are forced to split up, with Yuno flying off with Noelle in their crystal. Noelle talks Yuno into letting her go after their opponent's crystal alone, and as Alekdora tries to block their escape with sand, Noelle bursts through in a small heavenly wind arc. As Noelle expected, Solide chases after her. As she flies, Noelle uses Sea Dragon's cradle to protect herself from Solide's holy water assassination bullets. Dimitri catches up to Solide and offers to help defeat Noelle, but N activates the spores he placed on Dimitri's robe, pulling him from the sky with a large, heavy mushroom. Solide manages to land in between Noelle and the crystal. N summons a talking Mr. Mushroom on Noelle's shoulder, which creeps her out. After N gets heated and berating Solide for being a bad older brother, Noelle notices that N's personality is different when talking through the mushroom. Solide lashes out with death-dealing sea serpents, destroying the mushroom and cutting Noelle in several places. Unwilling to give up, Noelle points her wand at her brother and resolves to show that she's no longer afraid of him. Solide creates a large water serpent. However, he panics when Noelle creates a large water dragon. She releases her Sea Dragon's roar, destroying his spell and crystal and heavily injuring him. Afterwards, Asta compliments Noelle, and she boasts that she held back and thinks to herself that she can fire the spell 2 more times. N also compliments her, and Noelle notes his change of character. Later, after the 9th match, Noelle is proud of Team B's victory. After the 10th match, Noelle accompanies her squad mates when they stop Langris Vaude from killing Finral, and she watches as Owen heals Finral. Pumped for her next match, Noelle is astounded by Yuno's display of power in quickly destroying Team M's crystal. During the final match, Noelle protects her team's crystal and works with N to take on Nils and Ruben. She's shocked when Team I's crystal breaks while Real Boy Mortier and Yuno spells clash. Team P are the winners of the match and the tournament. Several days after the exam, the Black Bulls are waiting to hear who's been selected. Noelle boasts about her team's victory. Arriving late, Zora reveals that he is a Black Bull, which shocks Noelle and the others. Marileona has the squad don new robes before introducing additional members, including Nozel, which worries Noelle. After Marileona reveals the location of the Eye of the Midnight Sun's base, they're transported to the Gravito Rock Zone's floating dungeon. She then explains the situation and divides the squad into teams. Noelle infiltrates the dungeon with Luck, Kirsch, and others. As her team continues on, Noelle is carried along on Kirsch's cherry blossoms while criticizing her teammates. The team comes to a stop when Luck and Ben begin glowing. Noelle is shocked and confused by their sudden change in appearance and attitude. Luck then fires a thunder arrow at Noelle, barely missing her but singeing her cheek. Kirsch provides cover with Magic Cherry Blossom Blizzard and orders Noelle to create a defense, which she does. However, Luck crashes through the shield and ricochets around the hall, knocking Noelle and Kirsch to the floor. Noelle manages to escape without further injury and carries Kirsch, who is heavily injured, out of the dungeon. They rejoin the other Royal Knights and listen to a message about the chaos in the kingdom. Noelle coldly acknowledges that defending the kingdom may mean killing their fellow Magic Knights. However, Noelle declares that there must be a way to save both the kingdom and their friends. The group then departs, chasing after the dungeon. As they pass over Hajj, they notice that it's under attack, so Asta and Yuno request to go down and protect it. Noelle allows them to go by themselves and stops Noelle from joining them. The Royal Knights reach Clover Castle just ahead of the dungeon. The group of Magic Knights split up and head to different parts of the castle, with Noelle, Noelle, and Zora heading to defend House Silva's section. Once inside, Zora decides to go off on his own. Noelle protests, but Noelle allows him. An elf then attacks the pair, and Noelle easily defends and knocks out the possessed knight, amazing Noelle with his skill. Noelle crashes through the window and shields his younger brother from large compass needles, while Noelle follows up with Sea Dragon's Roar directed at Kivin. The spell is deflected out of the tower, so Nebra takes the chance to hide their escape. Refusing to allow them to run away, the elf uses another Atlas to disrupt the mana in the room, and Noelle struggles to maintain her mana skin. When Noelle orders his siblings to stay back because they can't fight, Noelle refuses, and Noelle then asks her to help her show the elf the power of House Silva. Due to the swirling mana, Noelle is incapable of raising a sea dragon's nest, so she floods the room with water while Noelle surrounds the siblings in a shell of mercury. Kivin is forced to release her spell, and Noelle takes the opportunity to restrain the elf. Noelle admits that his fear of losing their mother, or at least her appearance, again motivated his decision to discourage Noelle and apologizes to her, which shocks her and the siblings. The moment is cut short when Kivin stabs Noelle and erects a larger another Atlas. Motivated by Nozelle's recognition and her desire to protect her siblings, Noelle creates a new spell, Valkyrie Dress. Noelle then says that they have to heal Nebra when he's suddenly struck from behind. The elf then puts up a larger barrier so that Noelle won't be able to drown again. The elf also says that there's nothing they can do, and for them to give up and repent for their sins. Noelle wonders what to do and decides to use her magic at close range instead of long range. Noelle then uses her magic to create herself armor and weapons. The elf quickly fires more needles at Noelle, but Noelle easily dodges them and rushes forward. As Noelle gets closer, the elf uses her magic to distance herself from Noelle and fire more needles at her. Noelle dodges the needles and closes the distance to the elf. As Noelle attacks the elf uses her magic to block the attack. As the elf prepares to launch more needles, Noelle pushes forward and pierces through the elf's shield. As Noelle defeats the elf, the Silva siblings are freed from the magic barrier of the elf. As Noelle tries to get Solid and their siblings some help, they're suddenly surrounded. An elf comments about what the humans have done to Kivin and that it's unforgivable while firing a spell at them. Zora suddenly shows up and uses a trap spell to defeat the elf by reflecting the spell back at the elf. Zora reveals that he had come here because he had sensed them all and that he had brought a servant to help. As the servant starts to panic about being brought to the location, Zora reveals that his masters are wounded and about to die. The servant quickly uses his magic to heal Nebra and asks Solid to bring Noelle over to him. Noelle uses his magic to help Noelle. As the elves go to attack the humans, they're suddenly stopped by trap magic. Noelle then defeats some of the elves, but then two elves get behind Noelle and Noelle. The two continue to launch spells at them, but the spells are either dodged or blocked. The spells are reflected back at the elves, hitting the traps and hitting the elves in turn. Afterwards, the three mages notice the arrival of the Shadow Palace, and that all of the elves are descending from there. While Noelle wonders what to do, suddenly the black bulls appear from a portal and attack the elves while asking if everyone's okay. Noelle asks what took them so long and that they better be grateful since she was able to keep them all fighting by learning a new magic spell. Noelle then thinks about how lonely and scared she was before they had arrived. Asta asks about the cool outfit she's wearing, and Magna tells her that she better be thankful since they're going to be doing the protecting from now on. Zora wonders what the Black Bulls arrived in, which Noelle tells them she has no idea either, but isn't surprised since she's used to pretty much anything absurd by now. Zora and Noelle are then informed that the large walking bull is their ally. Yami orders the Black Bulls to handle the elves, but Zora and Noelle are soon paralyzed by Droa and Eklat's Reflect Iris. They're freed when Asta strikes the pair of elves with his Demon Destroyer sword. Zora and Noelle fly over on a broom and fall onto the pile of Black Bulls. The Black Bulls relocate to the courtyard of the castle and recover their magic power with Charmy's food, preparing to head into the Shadow Palace. They're attacked by more possessed magic knights, but Mereoleona and Fuegoleon Vermilion arrive and defeat the elves. As more possessed Golden Dawns arrive, Mereoleona thinks about how they have no time to face all the elves before the hole shrinks. The Black Bulls tell the captains that they'll handle the elves while they head to the Shadow Palace. Magna tells Asta to head with the captains since they can use the power of his sword, which Asta says that he'll go and he wishes them the best of luck. Magna also says that they'll be fine and tells them to come again, tries to say that she'll go too, but Solide tells her to head out with them since he acknowledges her as being the stronger one. Solide also says that one day he'll surpass her and that she should also come back as the mightiest of the House of Silva, which Noelle agrees to. Fuegoleon says that they're going to head out, and the elves respond that they're not going anywhere. The Black Bulls rush towards the elves, saying that they're not going to get in their way and start to battle. Fuegoleon, Mereoleona, Mimosa, Nozelle, Noelle, and Asta then all head towards the Shadow Palace. As the Magic Knights pass through the gate to the Shadow Palace, they enter a strange space that disrupts their mana. Nozelle informs everyone that the Shadow Palace is the border between the living world and the afterlife. Asta panics that they're going to die, which also causes Noelle to panic. You know, Asta, always got such a level head. After passing through the gate, the Magic Knights are separated into different rooms of the Shadow Palace, with Noelle ending up in a room all alone. As Noelle wonders why she's alone, Fauna flies down and offers to keep her company for a short time. As Noelle fights her, she notices that her Valkyrie dress allows her to outmaneuver the elf. Deciding not to hold back, Noelle fires her Sea Dragon's Roar spell and manages to destroy Fana's upper body, much to her shock. As Noelle begins to apologize for this, Fana's Phoenix Feather robe completely regenerates her body, and the elf explains the forbidden magic has allowed them to use even more unbelievable magic. Noelle wonders how she'll deal with Fana, while Fana says that she's getting sick of dying. The battle continues, with none of Noelle's magic attacks working on Fana. Fana decides to end Noelle, but she's suddenly attacked by Jack the Ripper. Jack expresses his joy of finding a woman worthy of ripping apart, much to Fana's surprise. Noelle wonders why it had to be Jack who showed up, and Jack asks if she has a problem with him. Noelle and Jack continue the fight. Later, Licht collects Fana's mana for a spell to use against Zagrid as her fight with Jack and Noelle continues. Fana thinks about how she can't fight against Jack anymore due to his magic adapting to hers when the creatures created from Zagrid's magic come into the room. Nozelle and Mimosa show up and save Fana, while telling them that they all have to leave immediately. After Zagrid's defeat, the Shadow Palace begins to collapse, with everyone on each floor rushing to escape the Devil's magic, with the protective magic of Noelle Silva, Clover, and Licht beginning to wear off. However, a portal appears and drops the assorted Magic Knights and Elves directly on top of Asta and Yuno. Rades, Spirito, and Valtos appear from another portal, and Valtos explains that this is the first step in his atonement. Suddenly, Yami cuts a hole through the spell, while Carla and Revchi pull them up out of it. Yami has a hold of Gelder Poisat. Asta notices that Revchi and Gelder are with the captains of the Black Bull and the Blue Roses. Limiel is fascinated by the odd magics and considers the Clover Kingdom to be in good hands. With everyone gathered, they all head to the exit. While they're exiting the Shadow Palace, Charmy tightly hangs onto Yuno, much to Sylph's anger. Asta notices that Charmy has returned to normal and comments about it, while Charmy replies that she's always been like this. Asta and Mimosa also become confused by this and wonder if they're seeing things, while Noelle simply wonders why Charmy is there, and Charmy tells her that she'll be anywhere where there's good food or where Yuno is. As the knights arrive back at the kingdom, Nozelle points out that everything isn't over and that there are still elves rampaging throughout the kingdom. After a plan is made by Patri to bring William Vengeance back so he can help fix things, Noelle watches with everyone else as William, Asta, and Licht combine their magic to exorcise the rest of the elves, undoing the reincarnation magic and finally saving the kingdom. Later, the Magic Knights begin to help the citizens of the kingdom while commenting how the long battle is over. Mimosa is healing Asta on top of a tower, while Noelle comments about how Asta had pushed himself too far once again. Limiel expresses his gratitude for their help with dealing with the devil, while also thinking about how they used the power of another devil. Noelle and Mimosa wonder who Lemiel and Secre are, even though Lemiel looks like the statue of the first Magic Emperor. Asta reveals that Lemiel actually is the first Magic Emperor, and expresses that he'll become a great Magic Emperor just like Lemiel. Asta also says that this Secre swallowtail is actually Nero, and Noelle wonders if Asta had hit his head somewhere. Secre says that Asta is correct, and Noelle is obviously shocked by this. Asta expresses how amazing Secre is for being able to transform into a human, and Secre reveals that this is actually her original form and she was originally a human. Asta wonders why she didn't say anything, and Secre says that she didn't get a chance to talk to Asta until they escaped from the Shadow Palace. Secre then pinches Asta's cheek for talking so brazenly to Lemiel, which Asta tells her to stop and how she's still the Nero that he knows. Noelle thinks about how Secre is the same cute Nero, but now she's cute in a different way. Lemiel's body starts to crumble, and Lemiel says that his mana is starting to run out. Noelle, Mimosa, and Asta are shocked by this, and Mimosa wonders if her magic can help. Lemiel asks Secre to do her part in guiding the kingdom towards their ideal, but Secre expresses her desire to stay with Lemiel forever. Lemiel says that it was because of Secre that he was able to protect the future, and that he doesn't want to close the door on any of her potential. Lemiel also says that he's looking forward to the future of the Clover Kingdom that they've protected. Lemiel also thinks about how he feels such content about how he was able to meet his own descendants. Secre tells Lemiel that she was happy being able to serve him, and Lemiel says that it was the same for him and thanks her for all her hard work. Asta, Mimosa, Noelle, and Secre then watch as Lemiel's body crumbles away. A day later, Julius and Yami call together a meeting with Asta, Noelle, and Mimosa and Secre, who are all uncertain about who this weird kid is. The kid explains that the kingdom is faced with 3 problems, the first being the lack of a magic emperor. Yami points out that Julius is in fact the kid, surprising the others. Julius explains that his magic power and grimoire are limited, and his influence with the nobles is weakened because of that. When Asta inquires about how Julius survived and became younger, Julius further explains that he found an ancient magic tool and combined the swallowtail marking with his time magic to store additional time. He also comments that it didn't work out perfectly, and Yami counters by saying that it's unusual to get a second chance at life. After exchanging pleasantries with Asta and asking about Secre's magic, Julius apologizes and says that the last 2 problems are very closely related. The second problem is that a foreign nation will destroy the Clover Kingdom if they don't change. Asta wonders if it could be the Diamond Kingdom or another country. Julius then says that the last problem is that Asta will die, and both could happen. Asta and Noelle are left stunned by the revelation of the last problem. As Julius explains that the power inside Asta's grimoire belongs to another devil and explains what the Curse of Weg is, Noelle and Mimosa both ask Asta if he's alright, with him stating that he's fine but that all of his muscles ache, with Mimosa pointing out that that doesn't really count as being fine. Julius then explains further about the other 3 kingdoms, saying that the Spade Kingdom was the one likely to attack, and that the Magic Parliament will need to blame the devil for the recent events, and that Asta is the perfect scapegoat for this. Asta's confused who the Magic Parliament is, and Julius replies and tells them that they're currently controlled by House Kira, shocking Noelle and Mimosa. A few days after the elves are exorcised, the Black Bulls barge into the Magic Parliament courthouse to rescue Asta and Secre. Damnatio shrinks the squad's spells, but Asta uses the Demon Destroyer Sword's ability to remove the effect. Nozel and Fuegolion then interrupt the fight and pass on a mission from Julius. The Black Bulls will be exiled while the squad investigates devils and monitors Asta and Secre. A few days later, Noelle goes to the capital to visit Dorothy Unsworth. Dorothy asks if Nozel had asked her to come, and Noelle says yes and asks about her mother and the devils. Dorothy leaves 3 of her squad members to finish the cleanup effort. She then pulls Noelle into her glamour world so that they can discuss in secret and safety. Dorothy initially teases Noelle with a copy of Asta, which Noelle blasts away. Dorothy then creates a copy of Nozel and reveals that Aesir died because of a devil's curse. She explains that the curse will kill anyone who speaks of it in the outside world, so Nozel could never tell his siblings. She further explains how devils manifest in the living world and warns that their influence has been spreading. After learning more during their mission to investigate devils, the Black Bulls discover a powerful curse in the Heart Kingdom, so Asta and Noelle visit Mimosa at the Golden Dawn's base to ask about her trip there as a student. Mimosa notes that the application period is still open, so she secures passage for the 3 of them and Finral into the Heart Kingdom. They travel by boat, and after passing through the barrier, they're greeted by Gaja, whom Mimosa remembers from her previous visit. He hands them crimson orange juice and tells them about the history of the Heart Kingdom, while the princess uses her water magic to move the boat across the kingdom. Suddenly, water traps Asta in a ball and whisks him away. Mimosa questions Gaja's motive, to which he replies that it's for the sake of peace. Noelle says that they have to head after Asta, and Finral tells them to leave it to him. After the 3 jump off the ship, Finral uses Fallen Angel flapping to warp Noelle, Mimosa, and himself further out over the forest. Gaja catches up to Finral blindingly fast. Before Gaja can catch Finral, Noelle protects him with Sea Dragon's Nest. Finral opens a portal to escape the defense and notices that Gaja is hovering in midair without using magic. Noelle clads herself in her Valkyrie dress and challenges Gaja, who accepts. Gaja fires a lightning bolt from his hand and commands it to follow Noelle when she tries to dodge. Before it hits Noelle, though, Finral warps it away, and Mimosa uses her magic cannon flower, which misses. He then creates a magic circle in the sky and summons a large storm cloud. The trio escape from the large lightning strike with spatial magic and hide from sight a distance away. Mimosa uses her magic flower guidepost to locate Gaja so that Finral can open a portal behind the Spirit Guardian and Noelle can hit him with Sea Dragon's Roar through the portal. Gaja manages to deflect the spell with a defensive magic circle on his body. He senses their location quickly and flies over to them, catching them by surprise. Instead of attacking, Gaja kneels and apologizes, admitting it was to test their magical skills. Gaja then escorts the Magic Knights to the princess's throne room, where the Princess Lolopechka introduces herself and asks the mages for assistance. After explaining the situation with her curse and the Spade Kingdom, the princess asks for the Clover Kingdom's help, explaining that they needed the power of Asta and Sekre, who are both arcane stage mages. Lolopechka tells them that she'll share any information she has access to if they would lend their power in order to defeat the devil. Noelle says that they can't decide that on their own, and Asta says they should ask Yami with the artifact they have. They get in contact with Yami, but he tells them to leave him alone since he's in the bathroom. Mimosa says she figured something like this might happen, so she borrowed an artifact in order to get in contact with Marcus. When they get in contact with Marcus, he asks what the matter is, but he suddenly notices the princess. Suddenly, Julius butts in to look at the princess and asks what kind of magic she uses. Marcus tells Julius not to butt in on his own since he's small right now, and Asta says that Lolopechka already knows about Julius' situation. After explaining the situation to Julius, Julius says that he's fine with it and even wants to join in. After the alliance is officially established, Lolopechka reveals that the devil, Magicula, has made the Spade Kingdom its home, and is using the people of that kingdom to build up and accumulate power in order to attack and vanquish the Clover, Heart, and other kingdoms. Lolopechka says that she'll be killed by the curse in a year, and how she wants to launch a preemptive attack on the Spade Kingdom. Lolopechka also says that their time limit is half a year, and that they need as much military strength as they can get. Lolopechka tells them to assemble as many people capable of fighting against the devil that they can find, since the Heart Kingdom Spirit Guardians will make them stronger. Lolopechka also says that she wants them to train with them and fight with them in 6 months, which the Clover Kingdom agrees to. During the 6 months of training, Lolopechka trains Noelle, Mimosa, and Sekre with a focus on the plans and tactics she developed after facing Vanica and Magicula. 6 months later in the Heart Kingdom, the Magic Knights are assembled to deal with the oncoming mobile fortress sent by the Spade Kingdom. The Mage Knights strategize about their counterattack, and Lolopechka worriedly informs them about how his enemies are mistreating their own people. The Magic Knights strategize around the counterattack, and Lolopechka worriedly informs them about how the enemies are mistreating their own people. Hearing this, Asta suddenly takes off from the meeting, and others worry about what to do next. Lolopechka smiles and says that it's better for him to go attack now. Later, after Asta defeats all of the Spade Kingdom soldiers, Noelle reaches the Candelo with Finral and Mimosa traveling with her inside one of her spells. After she releases her spell, she ends up dousing Asta and Finral in water. Noelle complains on how hard it was for her to maintain a transport spell in the Grand Magic Zone and inquires Asta on leaving them behind, with Noelle thinking to herself about mostly being upset that he left without her. Noticing the woman who was assaulted by the Spade soldier, Finral tries to flirt with her but backs off as he remembers that Finesse Comreich is the only one for him, with Noelle bluntly stating her surprise at Finral's behavior, stating that she's surprised he's even engaged at all. With Mimosa healing the rescued people, Noelle notices that the people are still sad since they've lost their home to the soldiers. The woman replies that the soldiers were cruel enough to kill the people who resisted and that they'll be killed immediately even if they return. Noelle smiles and asks them not to worry as Leopold Vermilion and Luck Voltia have headed to the town to defeat the Spade soldiers. With Luck and Leopold informing everyone they succeeded in saving the town, Finral marks the current location and heads over. The woman inquires what they're going to do with the town since they need to obey the strong in order to live. Asta smilingly replies that it's their town and that the Magic Knights won't be doing anything, and informs them that Finral will teleport them all back, which delights the prisoners. Asta says that their role is to defeat the devil in the Spade Kingdom. The woman reveals that the Spade Kingdom is currently being ruled by mages known as the Dark Triad, and how their strength is almost like that of a devil. In the royal palace of the Heart Kingdom, Lolopechka thanks everyone for successfully completing their mission and guarantees the safety of Tolan, the town in which they liberated. Lolopechka adds that as they gain more Spade Kingdom territory, this will corner the devils. Although it's a difficult task, Noelle feels hopeful since they have Lolopechka's support. The Magic Knights discuss what to do next. Asta, Luck, and Leopold wish to spar with Gaja. Lolopechka wants to join the training but trips and falls, Noelle suggesting they have a bath since they return from long travel to a Grand Magic Zone. Lolopechka, Noelle, Mimosa, and Sekre decide to go for a bath, but a villager rushes in to help, stating that Charmy has appeared in the forest. Finral steps in to take care of the situation, but Asta convinces him that he can take care of it. Asta summons the Demon Slayer sword and flies off from the castle, while Finral reflects on how much Asta has improved. At Elmora Lake, the women bathe, discuss dating, and also speak about how fortunate they are to have met each other. Later in the underground chamber, Lolopechka dotes on Charmy, feeding her fruits, upsetting Noelle, who asks the princess not to pamper her after what she did. The nights are then interrupted when the princess senses people infiltrate her barrier. She creates a map showing the intruders' locations and realizes that one of them is Vanica. While using her mana zone to evacuate and protect her citizens, Lolopechka notices that 4 of the Spirit Guardians have been defeated. She panics and decides to withdraw those she sent to support the Spirit Guardians, but Noelle convinces her to let them handle the fighting. When Vanica and a Dark Disciple reach the underground chamber, Lolopechka has Undine boost Mimosa's magic cannon flower to defeat the Disciple with 1 shot. Vanica enters after her Disciple, and Lolopechka questions why Vanica attacked the citizens when the princess is the Dark Triad's goal. Vanica explains that she wishes to further motivate the princess, which distresses Lolopechka. After Noelle points out that they've defeated all of Vanica's disciples, they're shocked to see the disciples stand back up, and Vanica explains and demonstrates that her disciples will continue to resurrect due to a curse. Lolopechka then worries about all the others as the disciples stand back up uninjured. When Vanica reveals that defeating her will end all of the resurrections, the 3 royal women prepare for battle, with Lolopechka changing into her formal dress. After donning her Valkyrie dress, Noelle unleashes Sea Dragon's Roar. Vanica's red beast easily blocks the spell, toward which Vanica is dismissive. When Noelle is distracted by Mimosa's fight with the Dark Disciple, Vanica lashes out with her blood magic, but Undine raises a wall of water, defending the Magic Knights. As the fight continues, Vanica lets slip that Xenon and Dante Zogratis are hunting down the World Tree magic and Dark Magic mages. Lolopechka researches the 2 magic attributes in her inherited memories and learns about the Tree of Kliphoth. Realizing that the fate of humanity is at stake, Lolopechka resolves to stop the Dark Triad's plans, so the princess traps Vanica in her Ludic Sanctuary spell, which weakens Vanica's blood magic and bolsters Noelle's water magic. Noelle then shifts her armor into its mermaid form and drives her lance into Vanica's abdomen. Vanica gets excited to fight someone else along with Lolopechka and attacks them with 50% of the devil's power. Lolopechka notices how powerful Vanica is and warns Noelle, which Noelle is able to evade Vanica's attack and continue her attack. Vanica continues to increase her power, and Noelle notices this increase and asks if this is the power Vanica used to kill her mother. Vanica doesn't know what she's talking about and comments how she doesn't care about the past and just wants to have fun now. Noelle continues to clash with Vanica while Vanica continues to increase her power. Vanica decides to use her full power and unleashes her full power of 70%. Lolopechka and Noelle notice their chance and call for Sekre. Sekre suddenly appears and uses her Eternal Prison on Vanica, but they notice that the spell isn't working. Megicula then takes control of Vanica's body and uses his magic to destroy both Eternal Prison and Ludic Sanctuary. Lolopechka wonders how this could have happened, and Megicula tells her that his spell, Decaying World, was active and it stopped their spells. As Lolopechka starts to writhe in pain, Vanica comments about how boring this is and decides to finish Lolopechka off. Noelle gets back up to stop Vanica, but Vanica says that she's done with Noelle. Noelle charges anyway, but Vanica hits her with a spell, but Noelle says that she isn't done yet. Vanica notices that Noelle is using her armor to avoid a lethal blow, and Noelle uses this chance to land a blow on Vanica. Vanica comments about how that attack didn't work, and Noelle replies, again, that she's not finished. Noelle attacks with her Sea Dragon's Roar spell at close range, but Vanica counters it with her Red Beast spell. Vanica comments about how useless Noelle's attack was, but suddenly she notices something. Vanica asks for Noelle's name. Noelle tells her that she's a member of the Clover Kingdom's royal family. Vanica then remembers Noelle's mother, Aesir, and decides to take Lolopechka hostage in order to make Noelle stronger for their next fight. Vanica then activates the exploding life spells within her Dark Disciples and explains what the spell does to those nearby. Vanica then leaves with Lolopechka as her Dark Disciples explode. Mimosa and Noelle manage to block some of the explosion. The Magic Knights are later found by Patri, Raya, Veto, and Fauna, who take them back to the secret village of the Elves, Elysia. Noelle recognizes the Elves as the former Third Eye and leader of the Eye of the Midnight Sun. She then notices that everyone survived and that they're also in the village. Noelle looks around at the village and senses the intensely concentrated mana. Suddenly, 2 children peek out from behind Patri, and Noelle wonders who these children are. Patri reveals that these children are descendants of the Clover Kingdom's royal family and Licht, which shocks Noelle and Mimosa. Patri tells them that Elysia is the new elf village, and once they learned of this place, they knew why they remained in this world. Mimosa asks why the elves saved them, and Patri replies that Dryad, the guardian deity of Elysia, sent them a divine revelation to do so. Patri comments about how they failed to reach them in time, but the 6 were able to survive thanks to their own power, and even able to save the Heart Kingdom. Patri says it was incredible that they faced powerful enemies and weren't annihilated, and that they've become strong over the last 6 months. Noelle says that they weren't strong enough since they couldn't protect Lolopechka and weren't able to defeat Vanica. Noelle says that Lolopechka was taken away and she doesn't know how long she'll be kept alive. Noelle also says that they have to get strong and asks Patri to help them get stronger. Raya comments about how this isn't how you ask someone for favors. Patri wonders if they can grow strong enough within such a short amount of time, even though they trained for 6 months and couldn't defeat them. Noelle knows it won't be easy, but giving up would be even harder, and the others agree. Raya comments about how much of a pain they are. Patri says that they can get stronger by using the elves' ultimate magic. Patri takes them to meet Dryad, while the others train to attain ultimate magic. Noelle is taken aside and learns that Undine transferred to her. She also learns that spirit hosts can reach Saint Stage, another class of magic that can defeat devils. Noelle wonders why Undine didn't teach any of the current spirit hosts, to which Undine replies that Lolopechka is unable to learn offensive magic, and that she wanted to preserve Lolopechka's kindness. Undine regrets this decision, but Noelle argues that being kind and feeling affection can't be considered mistakes. The two agree to work together to defeat Vanica and rescue Lolopechka. 3 days later, Noelle and the others travel to the Spade Kingdom in order to help stop the World Tree Advent ritual. They use true magic attacks to decimate the horde of low-ranking devils. Noelle and Gaja enter the castle, and upon reaching Vanica's chamber, Noelle stops Vanica from attacking Charlotte while Gaja grabs a hold of Lolopechka, who's under Vanica's control. Vanica blocks Noelle's lance, but the momentum carries her backward. Upset by Vanica's treatment of Lolopechka, Noelle and Undine promise to defeat Vanica. Noelle assimilates Undine into her body and armor, creating Saint Valkyrie dress, which blocks Vanica's spikes of blood. Vanica creates a herd of red beasts, but Noelle destroys them with ease. Undine mentions that they need to defeat Vanica in under a minute, so Noelle insists that she'll do so in 30 seconds. She attacks Vanica directly, dodging the Dark Triad's counterattacks. As Vanica grows to enjoy the fight, she creates a large red beast, and Noelle destroys it with a sea dragon's roar. Noelle then creates a sword and drives it into Vanica's abdomen. Did you enjoy our video? Be sure to check out these other great videos from the Amagi, and make sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.